Sadly, most people listen to music while doing anything else but listen to music. Nobody listens to music attentively. When you grow up, you had a stereo. You bring a few guys to the house, whatever, you'd put on a record and you listen to the record. Today, you listen to music while you're on the internet, while you're cooking, while you're doing anything else but listening. We've lost the ability to listen to music. So if you don't listen to music, it therefore has no value. It's background and it's free. So the day of depth in art is over. Everything has to be light and superficial, even classical music becoming light and superficial, jazz, everything is light and superficial, because to listen to a serious piece of jazz or classical music, you got to bring something to the table. You got to stop and say, okay, turn on the brain. We're going to listen. It's a little more involved, but people don't have the capacity. I'm not even sure if the younger generation has the capacity to understand, a great, Charlie Parker, things like this. It must sound like mosquitoes buzzing in their head. And that's another problem, in this country. I mean, you're in the jazz world, but art is commoditized. Art is not a commoditized, it's our culture. Jazz is the indigenous American Black art form, which we don't teach in the schools. We don't, keep it going. So therefore people don't know about it. So if you go into the inner city and ask a 14-year-old kid who Duke Ellington or Charlie Parker or Dizzy is, they'll look at you like you landed from the moon. This is not passed down like they do in Italy or Germany, and they pass down, Brahms and Bach and Verdi, and everybody listens to it because it's your culture. It's not a commodity. So in America, if you can't make money, they just walk away from it. Because our commodity, I guess our culture is pursuing money. We've been told that 5 cents of coffee beans and a cup of water is valued at $5. It's a $5 value. We've also been taught that, in your case, that a jazz musician who spends a month or two writing tunes and spends a week in the studio mixing it, spends all his money, works for months and months on this project, that is valued at free. That's what we're taught. So we're taught now that music is a free valued thing like air. And that's the problem. How do you survive in this type of market? And what is the incentive for a young person to get into this? I mean, I would tell my children, go to Wall Street and make a lot of money and play music for free. Because if you trade stocks, people put value on that. And that's the sad thing, that musicians cannot make money on a streaming service alone. And that's okay if you want to say, well, a lot of people say, well, in Mozart's time, people toured. Well, if you're a guy that is a touring guy that works, that's great. But if you're an arranger or composer and you don't tour and that's not your thing, you're kind of screwed. You got to get a job at Walmart bagging groceries or something. A lot of my time is spent writing classical music. I write a lot of orchestra works. And in the orchestra world, they don't want anything new anyway. So you're an outcast anyway. So basically the orchestra world is a new composition is doomed upon conception because they just want to do Mozart and Beethoven and Brahms, Mozart, Beethoven and Brahms. So that's a world where you learn that, it used to be called self-world. That was the philosophical thing. Today, it's about the self. My thing is an artist has to live solipsistic in a bubble, and you create for yourself, and that's it. There's no world. If the world likes it, fine. But if you're going to have to wait for the world to validate you, you'll end up in a nut house like Van Gogh, and you'll cut your ears off or head off or become an alcoholic. So my advice to anybody who wants to do music, do it for yourself, and that is the only reason to do music. And if something happens, great. I just, like I said, I started a new label to do young people, give them a chance, because we also live in a world of marketing. So if you go to a label, the first thing the label will tell a young musician is, wow, that's great. So how many Instagram followers do you have? How many Facebook followers? And if the guy is the greatest musician in the world, he says, I have 10, they say, thanks. And if you're an idiot and you have 1 million, they say, come on in. So I want to do something for young people that are actually talented. And I also work in technology, and I want to apply these new technologies, externalization for headphones, 3D headphone listening, 3D on 2 speakers. So, and I'm going to see if we can amortize this, and will people think there's a value to it? That's the thing. Will people think the value. I know that they don't see music as a value, but maybe they'll see the technology aspect as a value. So we're doing this at my new company called the AudiophilesSociety.com.